Hey everybody, Jamin here from Game Show. So a bunch of you probably caught the news this week, and for fans of the Halo franchise, it might be a tough pill to swallow. Halo 5 will mark the end of an era because it will be the first Halo game that will not feature split-screen multiplayer co-op, which is, kind of a big deal. So what do I think? Well, personally, I'm kind of saddened by it because some of the best times I ever had, with video games is, these times, particularly in times in college, getting together with a bunch of friends, gathering all together, and then playing Halo. On the other hand, I haven't done that in many moons. It turns out as you get older, you don't have an infinite supply of friends just within earshot at all hours of the night that you can just call in for a new match. So I was really interested in this question about what the removal of local multiplayer co-op kind of means for Halo and what it means for us. So one big thing is that, like all great things, like all great works, Halo has to change. We have to think about what Halo was in the past and also about what it is today. When we shot our Halo episode, which I'll link to in the description, it's awesome. I'm kind of biased, but oh well. We spoke to Hardy LaBelle, who was the multiplayer designer on the original Halo series. And one of the insights that he made was, and this made a huge impression on us, is that when LaBelle was designing the original Halo multiplayer, he thought of it as a party game. It was more akin to something like Mario Party or Cards Against Humanity than it was to Doom or Quake. It was designed for lighthearted fun with friends around the sofa. There was another really revealing takeaway that he and this other guy, they basically made the entire multiplayer mode all by themselves. Now, since those humble days with the two of them, Halo has increased in complexity by a staggering degree. It's made by a huge team at 343. And when you're balancing a big game like this, like Halo 5, data is everything. In fact, there's a fascinating cover story a couple years ago on Halo 3 that I'll link to in the description that looks at the user research lab, and I believe that Polygon did an update of the story maybe a couple years ago as well. But this is really important because the size of the team does affect ultimately how the game is made. Well, now when we talked to Chris King for the episode, he's the guy who's in charge of balancing weapons these days. He said that they're constantly monitoring things like the number of kills, assists, the effectiveness on different maps, the skill level of the players, all in relation of one gun versus the other. This is stuff that LaBelle did not have access to when he was designing the original Halo, over a decade ago. Here's the other cool thing that King told us. He said that they have the ability to flip a switch and record every time someone dies. So this gives them data on a lot of these minute details, such as the distance between players, the weapon each player was using, the length of time between their last death, what killed the other person, whether they were aiming using the new SmartLink system, and so on. And this is really important because they use all of this information in aggregate to make the game balanced and fair. And here's the crux of the argument. You need people to do this online. If they're playing on a machine, with friends, head to head, but it's not connected to the internet, then 343 doesn't get the information that they need to make the game more balanced over time. You see a very similar sort of approach for MOBAs like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm. From a designer's point of view, it's in the best interest for everyone to be playing the game on their own screens online because it gives them the ability to study and ultimately change and balance what they're creating. But this design decision, it's not without effect. There's a broader cultural trend here in the US and elsewhere that we're becoming physically disconnected from one another, and this removal of local multiplayer from Halo is just another step towards that future. Robert Putnam traces this idea. He wrote this book over 10 years ago where he lamented the decline in social capital, and he made this argument that Americans in particular have been detached from the activities in society that we used to highly value, such as voting, participating in civic organizations, volunteering in the community, et cetera, et cetera. And his book is called Bowling Alone: The Collapse and Revival of American Community, and he illustrates this problem with bowling. The number of people who bowl has increased, but the number of people in leagues has actually dwindled. And it means that these people who are bowling alone, as it were, don't get the same satisfaction, the same kind of social interaction as they might if they were in a league. Now, look, obviously, these types of experiences it's not a total one-to-one sort of analogy. Like when people are playing online, they are playing with other people, but it's not quite the same as having someone right next to you on the couch that you can poke them when you do something amazing, or have a chit chat with them, or just share a beer. These kinds of like social fabric types of interactions that games are often very good at enabling, and games have been that way since the days of arcade. So Halo is just an example of how technology can continue to lead us in that direction, and with virtual reality on the future, as Putnam predicts, the trend of cultural isolation could ostensibly, expand further. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think, whether this big change in the Halo franchise will affect the way that you think about the series and affect the way that you play with each other. I'll see you next week.